In this episode, we focus on a key moment that raised widespread attention. The day a court-ordered subpoena arrived at the home of Christopher Kepner, father of Anna Kepner. According to official records, a process server found his SUV running, the lights on inside the house, yet no one came to the door. This silent scene soon became one of the most discussed details in the case. As the investigation continued, this unanswered knock added new questions to an already complex family situation. Our story examines only verified public information to understand why this moment stands out and how it shaped the events that followed. This is not speculation, just a clear look at the documented facts surrounding a father, a subpoena, and a quiet house on a crucial day. The morning the subpoena was delivered began quietly, yet the atmosphere described in the court filing painted a far more unusual picture. A process server approached Christopher Kepner's home with official documents connected to an upcoming custody hearing. Nothing seemed out of place at first glance. A calm street, a still house, and a task that should have taken only minutes. But the moment she stepped onto the property, one detail immediately stood out. Christopher's SUV was parked in the driveway with the engine running. Warm exhaust drifted into the air, confirming it had been idling for some time. The presence of a running vehicle usually suggests someone is nearby, yet the scene held an unexpected stillness. As the server approached the front entry, she noticed the lights inside the home were turned on. Windows showed subtle movement of shadows, making it appear that activity had recently taken place indoors. Taken together, the running SUV and the illuminated
We talked it
interior,
over with our traveler agent,
the home
and that
seemed
was what was
occupied
suggested.
beyond any reasonable doubt. She knocked firmly on the door, announcing her presence with professional clarity. This was standard procedure, documented in her later sworn statement. She expected footsteps or even a brief acknowledgement, but the house remained silent. No response, no voice, no movement toward the entrance. Refusing to assume anything prematurely, she knocked again, then a third time. Each attempt spaced apart to offer ample opportunity for someone inside to answer. The process server followed protocol precisely, ensuring her efforts were clear, audible, and unmistakable. Still, the door stayed closed. After waiting, she called out her purpose. She was present to deliver a subpoena for an upcoming hearing. Under normal circumstances, this statement prompts immediate contact. Yet even after clearly identifying the nature of her visit, the silence from inside continued, creating an increasingly puzzling moment. Near the front entrance, a Ring doorbell camera was mounted in plain view. This meant her voice, her knocks, and even her presence were likely recorded or visible to anyone monitoring the camera. It added another layer. If someone was watching, they knew exactly who was at the door and why. Though there was no response, the indicators were impossible to ignore. The active vehicle, the lights inside, and the camera suggested awareness. The process server later documented that she believed the residence was occupied at the time of her attempts, strengthening the weight of her written account. With no response after repeated efforts, she made the procedural choice to leave the subpoena. She placed the documents carefully on the windshield of the running SUV, a location where they would be impossible to miss. The time noted on her official report was 10:29 a.m., marking the moment of delivery. After securing the paperwork, she stepped away from the home to continue other tasks. From her perspective, the process was complete. Anyone returning to the vehicle would immediately see the documents, and the legal requirement to deliver them had been fulfilled according to the circumstances. Later, the server returned to verify the status of the papers. What she found was drastically different from the earlier scene. The SUV that had been idling in the driveway was gone. No engine noise, no vehicle, no documents left behind. The situation had shifted without a sound. The subpoena she had placed on the windshield was no longer visible. Whether retrieved intentionally or removed incidentally, the result was the same. The papers were no longer present. This detail became one of the key elements recorded in her sworn return of non-service. Everything she observed, the running SUV, the unanswered knocks, the camera, the lights, and the missing subpoena, was documented meticulously. Her sworn statement was later filed in connection with a custody hearing scheduled for the following week in Brevard County. This sequence of events stood out because it occurred during a period of heightened attention surrounding the family. With a major hearing approaching and public questions already growing, the lack of response at the home raised curiosity about what was happening behind closed doors. Christopher Kepner, father of 18-year-old Anna, was expected to appear at the hearing. His perspective was considered important given the family's circumstances following Anna's passing aboard the cruise. Yet this attempted delivery became a symbol of the unanswered questions surrounding his involvement in the broader situation. When the details surfaced through Fox News reporting, they quickly drew attention online. Many saw the running SUV as unusual, while others argued that not answering a door does not automatically indicate avoidance. The ambiguity fueled discussion across social platforms and comment threads. The subpoena was connected not to the federal investigation, but to a family court dispute involving Anna's stepmother and her ex-husband. It was part of a larger set of proceedings in which decisions about custody and parental involvement were being reviewed. This added complexity to the day's timeline. Fox News noted in its reporting that Christopher did not respond to their attempts to reach him for comment. The lack of communication aligned with the quiet scene at the home, deepening the public's interest in understanding his position during this period. While investigations and court hearings move forward, the image of the unattended running SUV remains one of the most striking early details. It is preserved in court documents as a factual account, not interpreted, not expanded, simply recorded as it occurred that morning. Part 1 establishes the scene, the procedure, and the unanswered door that marked an important moment in the case. In Part 2, we explore the family dynamics, legal disputes, and the environment surrounding the subpoena, providing a clearer picture of why this attempted delivery carried significant weight. Before the subpoena incident, the Kepner family was already experiencing intense emotional and legal pressure. The loss of 18-year-old Anna during a family cruise had created a wave of uncertainty, and each family member found themselves navigating separate challenges in the aftermath. Anna had been on a vacation aboard the Carnival Horizon with her father, stepmother, grandparents, and siblings. What began as a routine trip quickly turned into a moment that changed the family forever. Her passing led to multiple agencies reviewing the circumstances surrounding that day. The household included children from different parental relationships, creating an already layered family structure. Anna shared a cabin on the cruise with 2 step-siblings, reflecting the blended nature of the family. These dynamics would later play a significant role in the unfolding legal events. Following Anna's death, a custody-related motion appeared in family court. Chantal Kepner's ex-husband, Thomas Hudson, filed new requests regarding their shared daughter. He expressed concerns over recent events and sought adjustments to his involvement and parental rights. In his filing, Hudson wrote that the lack of communication about decisions affecting their children had placed them in a difficult position. He argued that recent circumstances influenced by the household environment were affecting their well-being and future stability. Court records noted that their 16-year-old son was being reviewed in connection with the broader circumstances surrounding the family. Importantly, this information came through family court documents, not through law enforcement announcements or formal statements by investigators. Fox News emphasized that no official statements named any individual publicly as responsible for anything. Instead, the court filings reflected internal family concerns that surfaced during the custody dispute. These concerns became part of the public conversation as documents became accessible. The combination of grief, uncertainty, and legal disagreements created a widening emotional divide within the family.
It's
Each
an
filing and
emotional mess.
response added another
He couldn't
layer
even
of
speak.
tension, which made the subpoena
He
for
couldn't
Christopher's
believe what had
testimony
happened.
And
even
his
more
grandparents
relevant to
say
the
she
ongoing
and her
situation.
stepbrother were close.
Christopher's presence at the
planning to join
upcoming
the
hearing
military.
was
She had
essential
purpose.
because he occupied
She
a
wanted to
central
do
role
things.
in both households, his own and the one connected to the custody dispute. His account of recent events was considered important for understanding the environment surrounding the children. Courts typically rely heavily on first-hand testimony, particularly in cases involving children. By calling Christopher to appear, the judge signaled the need to gain clarity on household conditions, communication patterns, and other factors that might influence custody decisions. The timeline of events from the cruise, including room arrangements, family interactions, and travel details, formed part of the backdrop shaping the court's interest. The court was not examining the cruise incident directly, but rather the circumstances surrounding the family before and after the trip. As media outlets reported the details, public interest grew rapidly. Readers attempted to make sense of the family structure, the nature of the custody dispute, and the meaning of the court documents. The situation became a frequent topic in online discussions and comment threads. Many online commentators expressed confusion about the relationships within the household. Others noted that blended families often face additional challenges during stressful events. The complexity of the family dynamic made every update feel significant and open to interpretation. Hudson's concerns reflected unresolved issues from the past. His filing suggested that communication had broken down long before the cruise, and the recent developments amplified his belief that decisions affecting the children required more transparency and balance. The upcoming hearing was not simply procedural, it had the potential to reshape the daily lives of multiple children. Testimony from involved adults, including Christopher, was essential for establishing what changes, if any, were needed to ensure stability and safety within the families. Behind every line of the court filings was a family grappling with loss, stress, and uncertainty. Emotions ran high, and decisions carried added weight because of the recent tragedy. The documents revealed concerns, but also reflected a collective struggle to regain some sense of stability. The subpoena delivered to Christopher was scheduled ahead of the hearing so his perspective could be included. Without his participation, the court risked having an incomplete picture of the family environment. His expected testimony was seen as a key piece of the review. Fox News noted that Christopher did not reply to requests for comment. Combined with the quiet home during the subpoena attempt, this added an element of uncertainty. Some interpreted the silence as private grieving, while others viewed it as a notable absence during a critical moment. The family dispute, the unanswered subpoena, and the complex relationships all intersected with the broader narrative already surrounding Anna's passing. While each element stood on its own, together they formed a timeline that raised reasonable public curiosity. Part 2 outlines the pressures affecting the family and the legal tensions that made the subpoena so important. In Part 3, we examine the public reactions, unanswered questions, and how this moment fits into the ongoing developments that continue to shape the case. As news surrounding the subpoena attempt became public, online discussions expanded rapidly. Readers of the original Fox News article reacted strongly to the details, especially the image of a running SUV left unattended. Many felt this created an unusual atmosphere, sparking a surge of questions about what truly happened that morning. Comments highlighted the puzzle-like nature of the situation. Some people focused on the presence of interior lights and the quiet doorway, noting that these details gave the impression that someone might have been inside. Others, however, cautioned against drawing conclusions without hearing from those directly involved. The process server's sworn statement became one of the most quoted elements in public discussions. Her description of the silent home, the clear announcement of her purpose, and the missing subpoena upon her return provided structure to conversations that were otherwise filled with speculation. Online reactions also showed compassion for the younger family members. Many recognized that the children were navigating grief and uncertainty in the middle of court filings, public attention, and emotional strain. This heightened awareness of how complex the family situation had become. Readers questioned how a family already under pressure was expected to manage simultaneous legal proceedings while processing a recent loss. Some argued that emotions alone could explain unusual behavior, while others believed the events called for additional clarity from the adults involved. As part of the dialogue, several commenters addressed the legal limitations around serving documents. They noted that while leaving a subpoena on a vehicle is not typical, it is sometimes allowed when all reasonable attempts to initiate contact have been made without success. The conversation broadened beyond the subpoena itself. People began revisiting earlier details from the cruise, the family relationships, and the custody dispute. Each detail seemed to add another piece to the narrative, even though none directly explained what happened inside the home that day. The absence of public statements from Christopher became a focal point. Some expressed understanding, acknowledging that individuals handled grief in different ways. Others believed that silence during a formal proceeding could create avoidable complications, especially when testimony was expected. Media coverage amplified these questions. By reporting only verified information, outlets like Fox News provided structure for the public conversation. Still, the contrast between documented facts and unanswered questions kept the story active across multiple platforms. Many readers pointed out the unusual combination of details: a running SUV, interior lights on, a clear announcement by the process server, and no verbal acknowledgement. This set of observations led people to wonder whether the lack of response was intentional or simply an unfortunate coincidence. Even so, many cautioned against jumping to conclusions. Without hearing from those present at the home, the public could only work with limited information. This balance between curiosity and caution became a recurring theme in discussions surrounding the case. People also debated the broader emotional landscape. The family had recently experienced a deeply distressing event, and some argued that public expectations for immediate clarity might overlook the reality of grief and shock. This perspective encouraged a more empathetic approach to interpreting the silence. Others looked at the legal perspective. The subpoena was part of a custody review, not a criminal proceeding. Because of this, some felt that avoiding communication could unintentionally complicate a routine court process rather than help clarify the situation. The involvement of multiple households added further layers to the conversation. Each parent, each child, and each relationship contributed to the overall complexity, making it challenging for outsiders to fully understand the motivations behind individual decisions. Throughout the commentary, one consistent theme emerged: the need for more information. Readers consistently expressed a desire for further updates, whether from court filings, official statements, or investigative agencies, hoping for clarity in a story that continued to evolve. The public interest was also shaped by the timeline. Events unfolded quickly: Anna's passing, family court filings, and the attempted subpoena all occurred within a short period. This compressed timeline intensified the sense of urgency felt by many observers. At the same time, federal investigators had not released new details about their review. With no public designation of suspects or charges, the absence of concrete updates encouraged people to focus more heavily on the family dynamics reported in the article. The conflicting interpretations revealed the difficulty of understanding private family matters through limited public documentation. While the sworn statement provided insight into one moment, it could not fully explain the motivations behind it, leaving many questions unresolved. Ultimately, the running SUV and unanswered door became symbols, representations of unanswered questions rather than definitive evidence of anything. The moment stood in the record exactly as documented, neither expanded nor clarified by those who were present. Part 3 concludes by highlighting the contrast between public curiosity and the incomplete information available. As the story continues to develop, the focus remains on verified facts. The unanswered moments from that morning now form part of a larger narrative that will likely evolve as additional details emerge. The attempted subpoena service became more than a procedural detail. It shifted the direction of public attention. As the story spread, analysts began discussing how this moment might impact upcoming hearings. Even though the event was simple in structure, its timing within the larger narrative gave it unexpected significance. Legal commentators explained that a subpoena is not merely a request. It is an official directive for someone to appear and provide information. When the process server's account became part of the public record, it highlighted the importance the court placed on hearing directly from Christopher during the custody review. Some discussions centered on how the court might interpret the absence of a response. Because no interaction occurred, there was no direct explanation for the silence at the home. This uncertainty left observers wondering whether the hearing would proceed without the input the judge initially sought. Court procedures depend heavily on cooperation from all involved parties. Without Christopher's testimony, the court risked missing relevant information about the household environment. This was particularly important given the interconnected nature of the family, spread across multiple relationships and parental responsibilities. Meanwhile, the documents filed in family court continued to draw attention. Each filing added context to the existing tensions between households. Though separate from the investigative review, the court's responsibility was to determine arrangements that supported stability for the younger children. The earlier mention of the 16-year-old in legal filings added further attention, though sources emphasized that this information came solely from the custody paperwork, not from any official investigative announcement. It served as a reminder that many pieces of the story originated from different branches of the legal system. The dual nature of the situation, part family law, part investigative review, made the case especially difficult for the public to interpret. Only fragments of information were available, each from different authorities, and none provided a complete picture. This created a sense of waiting for clarity. For legal analysts, the subpoena moment illustrated a broader issue. Communication between the individuals involved had become strained. When communication falters, misunderstandings grow, and the court's role becomes even more central in sorting through the factual landscape. The absence of a response also led to practical challenges. If the court could not confirm that Christopher had received the subpoena, additional steps might be required to ensure proper notification. These procedural layers could delay hearings or shift their focus. Despite these complications, the process server's sworn statement remained a stable point in the record. Her timeline, observations, and actions were described clearly, forming a factual foundation for understanding what occurred on that morning, independent of interpretation. The public continued to monitor developments closely, waiting for the next official update. With no statements from Christopher, each new court filing or media report carried additional weight, offering another clue in a case filled with unanswered questions. Many observers noted that the family's silence should not automatically be seen as unusual. Families experiencing recent loss often withdraw from public discussion. Nonetheless, because the subpoena was part of a formal process, the lack of engagement generated debate. Within this debate, some advocated for patience, arguing that the legal system would eventually produce the clarity people sought. Others believed that unanswered events, like the SUV and the closed door, highlighted why additional explanations were needed sooner rather than later. As the story evolved, attention returned to the initial details of the cruise. Room assignments, family interactions, and the structure of the trip continued to be examined by readers trying to piece together how each event connected to the next in the timeline. Still, the subpoena attempt remained one of the most concrete pieces of documented information available. It stood out because it involved a direct, verifiable process. carried
We had
out by
talked
a
it over with our
professional
trial
whose
agent, and that
sworn
was what was
account became
suggested.
part of official court records. This led to broader questions about accessibility and accountability. Who had information? Who was expected to provide it? And how would the court proceed if a key voice was missing at the hearing? These questions formed the foundation of ongoing public interest. At the same time, many recognized that the family was navigating multiple layers of difficulty loss, legal disputes, and public attention. These factors created an environment where each decision carried emotional and procedural weight. The story also demonstrated how even small, ordinary actions, a knock at a door, a vehicle left running, can take on symbolic meaning when viewed within a larger context. What seemed simple at first became a moment that shaped narrative direction. As hearings approached, the focus shifted toward what information would be presented and how it would influence decisions. The significance of the subpoena attempt lay not in what was said, but in what remained unsaid, leaving a gap that both legal authorities and the public hoped would eventually be filled. Part 4 concludes by emphasizing the impact of one silent morning on the broader case. The unanswered door, the missing papers, and the complex family circumstances now form a crucial piece of the ongoing story, one that will continue to evolve as official proceedings move forward. As the story moved forward, the unanswered moments surrounding the subpoena attempt continued to influence public discussion. Even though no new official statements were released, the documented details from earlier filings shaped how readers understood the direction of the case. Because investigators had not disclosed additional findings, people began focusing more heavily on procedural developments. Court documents, service attempts, and recorded timelines became the main sources of insight as the family continued navigating legal responsibilities. This reliance on documents rather than statements created a unique situation. Instead of conclusions, the public had fragments, each factual, but none fully connected. These fragments formed the foundation of the broader narrative as people tried to understand where the case might lead. Legal analysts emphasized that the absence of public updates did not imply inactivity. Many processes occur behind closed doors, especially when they involve families, minors, or sensitive circumstances. The privacy surrounding the situation added a layer of necessary caution. Still, the record of the subpoena attempt remained
We had
significant.
talked it over with our trial agent.
It represented
that was
a
what was
documented
suggested.
effort to include Christopher's perspective in the upcoming hearing. Without his voice, the court might need alternative means to gather the information necessary for its evaluation. Observers noted that communication challenges often complicate family cases. When emotions are high and multiple households are involved, misunderstandings can shape outcomes as strongly as verifiable facts. This dynamic played an important role in how the public interpreted the events. The custody filing by Thomas Hudson continued to draw interest. His concerns, outlined in clear language, reflected a desire to protect his children while navigating a difficult co-parenting history. His filings added context to why the subpoena for Christopher was relevant. The mention of the 16-year-old in court documents also remained a recurring topic. However, analysts repeatedly emphasized that this detail came from family court, not from investigators. This distinction was important in preventing misinterpretations of the legal record. With no criminal charges announced, the focus stayed on procedural accuracy. Ensuring that each required party received notice, understood the court's expectations, and participated as required became a central theme in understanding how the case would progress. Public patience was tested as the story continued without major developments. People sought clarity, but understood that complex cases often unfold slowly. This balance between urgency and caution shaped the tone of ongoing discussions across multiple platforms. Many viewers recognized that the absence of immediate answers was normal in long-form investigations. The desire for transparency persisted, but so did the understanding that official agencies release information only when appropriate and necessary. As the timeline expanded, commentators reflected on the initial cruise. The fact that so many family members were present created an intricate web of relationships. This complexity made it challenging for outsiders to fully interpret each detail without additional context. Throughout the evolving narrative, one theme never faded: the significance of communication. Whether between parents, investigators, or households, the ability to exchange accurate information remained central to understanding the case's direction. Because Christopher did not provide public comment, his perspective remained unknown. This absence created space for speculation, but also served as a reminder that silence can have many explanations, ranging from emotional distress to legal caution. The process server's documentation offered one of the few objective moments in the narrative. Her account provided a timestamp, a sequence of observations, and a factual basis for understanding an event that otherwise might have remained ambiguous. This moment also illustrated how small interactions within the legal system can shape public conversation. A simple service attempt became a focal point, not because of its complexity, but because of its timing and the limited amount of confirmed information available. In the absence of further updates, the story demonstrated how delicate the balance is between public curiosity and private circumstances. Families navigating hardship often face scrutiny, even when they have offered no statements, leaving the community to interpret incomplete details. This situation also showed how online audiences respond to uncertainty. While some expressed frustration, many remained thoughtful, acknowledging that emotional weight and procedural responsibilities can influence how individuals respond to official requests. Despite the unanswered questions, one truth remained constant: the timeline could not be fully understood until additional official information emerged. The public was left to wait for future filings, statements, or decisions that might shed more light on the events. Part 5 concludes by recognizing that this story is still developing. The unanswered door, the custody dispute, and the larger investigative review all intersect in ways that continue to attract attention. As proceedings move forward, each new document may bring clarity or raise new questions. As media coverage expanded, the subpoena attempt became one of the most referenced points in discussions about the case. Outlets emphasized the factual nature of the process server's sworn statement, ensuring the public understood that the account came from verified court documentation. Fox News played a major role in shaping the public's early understanding. Their reporting focused on the details of the service attempt, the custody filings, and the lack of direct responses from Christopher. By presenting these elements clearly, they provided a structured timeline for viewers to follow. Other outlets echoed these details, often highlighting the running SUV and unanswered door as the most striking aspects of the narrative. These details offered a concrete moment amid an otherwise complex set of circumstances, making them memorable and easy to reference. Because investigators had not released additional information, the media relied heavily on existing public records. This contributed to a narrative shaped by documents rather than commentary, reflecting an effort to avoid speculation while still informing the public. The story's momentum was also driven by social media. Readers shared screenshots, discussed interpretations, and compared the subpoena event to other cases they had followed. Each discussion added new layers to the public narrative, even though official details remained unchanged. Some users focused on procedure, explaining how subpoenas are typically served and why leaving paperwork on a vehicle may be acceptable under certain conditions. These procedural discussions helped others understand the legal context more clearly. Other users highlighted the emotional context of the family's situation. They noted that media attention can be overwhelming, especially during periods of grief. This perspective encouraged viewers to consider how the spotlight itself may affect communication and decision-making. Legal analysts also commented on the importance of clear timelines. They emphasized that seemingly small procedural events can later become significant when establishing context for hearings, reviews, and interactions between parties in a case. As coverage grew, the distinction between confirmed information and public interpretation became even more important. Reporters reiterated that no official statements designated any individual as responsible for any wrongdoing, keeping the focus strictly on documented facts. This careful approach reflected a broader journalistic responsibility, guiding the audience through sensitive material while avoiding assumptions. With minors involved and multiple households connected, maintaining accuracy was essential. Because of this sensitivity, the media frequently referenced the custody documents rather than attempting to infer meaning. These filings, while not related to investigative findings, provided insight into the communication challenges that the families faced. Public conversation also considered the limits of what could be shared. Agencies handling delicate matters often withhold information to protect those involved, especially younger individuals. This added to the public's understanding that patience would be necessary. In the absence of detailed investigative updates, the cruise itself remained part of the story. Readers revisited the timeline of the trip, attempting to connect various details reported across different articles. Each piece of information maintained a place in the evolving narrative. Media discussions highlighted that the custody dispute and the investigative review were parallel processes. Understanding this distinction helped prevent confusion about why certain details surfaced in court filings but not in official investigative statements. Through consistent reporting, journalists underscored the complexity of blended families navigating legal and emotional challenges. This context helped viewers make sense of why the subpoena attempt carried such symbolic weight within the broader case. The public also showed increased interest in the role of process servers. The precision of their documentation became a reminder that even routine tasks can become significant when they intersect with sensitive events or ongoing legal matters. This focus on procedure reinforced the idea that every step in a legal timeline matters. Whether a document is delivered, ignored, or delayed can influence how future hearings unfold and how the public interprets the sequence of events. Media coverage continued to highlight the importance of hearing from all parties involved. Without statements from Christopher, reporters could only rely on the official record. This absence continued to shape the way audiences interpreted the unfolding situation. Despite limited details, interest in the case remained strong. The combination of family dynamics, procedural events, and unanswered questions created a story that viewers followed closely, often searching for updates across platforms. Part 6 concludes by recognizing the media's role in shaping public perception during a period of limited official information. As coverage continues, each new document or filing will likely influence the narrative, offering additional clarity or reinforcing the questions that remain. Silence became one of the most defining elements surrounding the subpoena incident. With no verbal acknowledgement at the door and no public comment afterward, the absence of communication created a vacuum in which the public, analysts, and court observers sought meaning. The silence extended beyond the moment at the house. When Fox News attempted to contact Christopher for comment, they received no reply. This lack of engagement added depth to the discussion about how much of the story was still unseen or unspoken. In legal contexts, silence can have many interpretations. It may indicate caution, emotional distress, or simply a desire for privacy. Analysts repeatedly warned viewers not to assume intent, emphasizing that only documented actions, not assumptions, should guide interpretation. Still, the timing of the silence played a major role in shaping public attention. With a custody hearing approaching, the expectation for clear communication was high. When those expectations went unmet, uncertainty grew, and discussions turned increasingly analytical. Observers noted that grief often leads individuals to withdraw from external communication. In situations involving emotional trauma, people may not respond to inquiries, even when formal processes are underway. This possibility became part of the larger conversation. On the other hand, some readers felt the silence added urgency to the need for further clarification. Without input from a central figure, the public was left to rely solely on documents, timelines, and procedural details to understand the situation. This dynamic highlighted the delicate balance between public interest and personal privacy. While the case had entered the public sphere through court filings and media reports, the individuals involved remained private citizens coping with personal challenges. Legal professionals emphasize that participation in a court hearing is not optional once a subpoena is served or attempted. Even if communication is difficult, the court still needs accurate information to make decisions affecting the welfare of minors. This raised procedural questions. Would the court attempt alternative service? Would the hearing proceed without Christopher's input? Or would new filings address the issue before the next scheduled date? These questions fueled ongoing public curiosity. The process server's sworn statement became even more important in this context. It provided clear evidence of her attempts to communicate, offering the court and the public a factual account of what happened at the residence that morning. As conversations continued, people reflected on how silence often shapes narratives unintentionally. Without additional context, viewers tended to focus more heavily on the few confirmed details available, even when those details were procedural rather than explanatory. The unanswered door became symbolic in storytelling discussions. It represented not just a physical event, but a broader pattern of missing perspectives. Each unanswered knock echoed through public discussion as people examined what the moment could mean. However, many acknowledged that silence alone cannot reveal the full picture. Without hearing directly from the individual involved, the meaning behind the lack of response remained open. This emphasis on restraint helped keep discussions grounded in documented facts. The family's blended structure also contributed to the complexity. Each household faced different responsibilities and emotional challenges. When multiple homes are involved, communication can naturally become strained, even without additional pressure from public attention. Some discussions centered on how the court might view the situation. Judges typically recognize that families in distress may not always respond as expected. Still, official processes must continue, especially when decisions about minors are pending. This added importance to the ongoing record. Every filing, every statement, and every documented attempt built the timeline the court would use to understand events. Silence, too, became part of that timeline, not as evidence of intent, but as a factual circumstance. Observers pointed out that public curiosity often grows strongest in the absence of information. With few new updates from authorities, the public naturally focused on any documented moment that offered insight, even if only indirectly. As the story continued to develop, this focus on silence created a narrative thread that connected earlier events to future expectations. People awaited new information to determine whether the unanswered door would remain an isolated moment or become part of a larger pattern. The significance of the subpoena event, therefore, extended far beyond the day it occurred. It influenced the way the public viewed the case, the expectations for forthcoming hearings, and the questions that shaped ongoing discussions across media platforms. Part 7 concludes by noting that silence can shape a narrative just as powerfully as statements. Until more information emerges, the unanswered door remains one of the clearest yet most elusive elements in a case defined by its unanswered moments. Future developments may bring clarity or open new paths of inquiry. As the case continued through the legal system, attention turned toward the procedures themselves. The attempt to serve the subpoena opened questions about how courts manage communication challenges, especially when key individuals are difficult to reach or do not respond immediately. Legal professionals explained that subpoenas are essential tools for gathering first-hand information. They ensure that courts hear from all relevant parties. When a subpoena is not acknowledged, additional steps may be required to guarantee fair participation in upcoming hearings. Because the subpoena was connected to a custody matter rather than an investigative review, the court's priority was accuracy in understanding family dynamics. Testimony from each parent or guardian allows the judge to form a complete picture before making decisions that affect minors. This meant that Christopher's role was important. His perspective on household routines, communication, and recent events could influence the court's evaluation. Without direct input, the court might rely more heavily on documented filings and statements from other parties. When the process server reported non-contact, the court received a clear record of the attempt. This record does not assign blame or suggest intent. It simply documents what occurred, providing officials with a factual timeline they can reference during the hearing. Procedural clarity is crucial in custody matters. When one party does not respond to service attempts, courts may authorize alternative methods of delivery to ensure due process. These methods vary depending on jurisdiction and the circumstances surrounding the case. Observers noted that the legal system often adapts when traditional service efforts fail. Additional attempts, mailed notices, or service through counsel may be considered. Each option ensures that decisions affecting children move forward without unnecessary delays. However, alternative service does not remove the emotional weight of the moment. For families already navigating grief and complexity, formal procedures can feel overwhelming. This reality contributed to public empathy even as discussions about due process continued. Commentators also pointed out that, in many cases, communication challenges arise from timing rather than intention. People may be occupied, unavailable, or emotionally unprepared for unexpected visits. Courts take these possibilities into account when evaluating service attempts. Still, because the SUV was running and the lights appeared to be on, public curiosity increased. These details created a contrast between the appearance of activity and the lack of response, prompting questions about how the moment might influence the next procedural steps. Legal analysts emphasized that the court's role is not to interpret silence, but to ensure participation. If further attempts were required, they would be documented accordingly. The emphasis remained on procedural compliance rather than speculation about behavior. The custody hearing itself involved more than the subpoena. It addressed communication issues between households, concerns raised in recent filings, and the overall stability of the environment in which the children were living. These matters required careful consideration. Because the hearing focused on parental coordination and decision-making, the atmosphere surrounding the subpoena attempt added symbolic tension. It reminded observers how communication challenges can ripple outward into legal and emotional consequences. Court experts explained that when one party does not appear or provide testimony, the judge may rely on available evidence and statements from the other parties. This does not imply wrongdoing. It simply reflects the need to move forward with the information at hand. The court's responsibility to protect minors is paramount. When questions arise about communication, decision-making, or household conditions, the judge evaluates them with caution. Every detail contributes to a larger assessment of the family environment. The complexities of blended families can complicate these evaluations. When children move between homes with different routines and expectations, courts must consider the stability of each environment, relying heavily on testimony and documentation. In this case, the intersection of the subpoena attempt, the custody filings, and the broader emotional context created a multifaceted situation. Each component added weight to the upcoming hearing, highlighting the importance of participation from all parties involved. Public interest grew as people awaited updates from the court. Many hoped that the hearing would clarify the questions raised by recent events, while others understood that some details might remain private due to the presence of minors in the case. Throughout the discussions, one theme persisted. The legal system operates through documented actions. These records, not public speculation, formed the basis for future decisions. The subpoena attempt became one such record, preserved in the official timeline. Part 8 concludes by noting that legal procedures play a powerful role in shaping the next stages of any case. As this situation continues to unfold, each document, filing, and scheduled appearance will help determine how the court understands the family's circumstances moving forward. As more people learned about the subpoena attempt, community discussions expanded beyond legal procedure. Many viewers, readers, and online participants felt compelled to share their own experiences with complex family situations, expressing empathy for everyone involved in the case. The conversation often began with reactions to the process server's sworn statement. The visual of a running SUV and the unanswered door created a moment that many found striking. Community members described the scene as
we
unusual,
had talked it over with our travel
prompting them
agent,
to
and that
reflect
was what
on
was
what might
suggested.
have influenced the silence. For some, the moment symbolized the emotional exhaustion that families may face after sudden loss. They acknowledged that individuals process grief differently and may not respond to unexpected visits, even when those visits involve important documents. Others focused on the procedural aspect. They discussed the importance of timely communication during legal hearings and wondered how the attempted service might affect the court's ability to gather complete information for its review. Amid these mixed reactions, one theme remained constant: concern for the younger family members. Many community comments expressed hope that the court proceedings would prioritize stability and well-being for the children connected to both households. People also reflected on how challenging blended family dynamics can become when unexpected events surface. With multiple parental figures, different homes, and various responsibilities, communication can naturally become strained even under normal circumstances. This led to broader conversations about how the public interprets partial information. Readers recognized that they had access only to legal filings and media summaries, not the full perspective of the individuals directly involved. This awareness encouraged a more measured tone. Still, the subpoena event itself remained a focal point. Because it was documented in a sworn statement, it became one of the few solid details available to the community. People relied on it as a reference point for understanding the procedural timeline. Some participants shared general knowledge about court procedures, explaining why alternative service methods may be considered if the initial attempt does not produce contact. These contributions helped others understand how the case might progress. Additionally, several discussions emphasized the difference between investigative reviews and family court matters. This distinction helped organize public understanding, reminding viewers that the subpoena was tied to custody issues, not investigative conclusions. With this distinction in mind, some users expressed patience, believing that the legal system would eventually provide clarity. They noted that cases involving sensitive circumstances often proceed carefully, with limited public updates to protect those involved. Others expressed that the lack of communication felt unsettling. For these viewers, the unanswered door became symbolic of the broader uncertainty surrounding the case, adding emotional weight to the already difficult situation. As more articles and discussions appeared, people began comparing different accounts to ensure accuracy. They shared links, quoted sentences, and examined timelines, demonstrating a strong desire to maintain factual consistency in community conversations. The process also revealed how deeply communities engage with real-life stories. People who had no personal connection to the individuals involved still felt invested in understanding the procedural steps and emotional layers shaping the case. Some pointed out the importance of withholding assumptions until more information is released. They reminded others that silence, unanswered knocks, or procedural challenges do not necessarily indicate intent or meaning beyond their documented form. This perspective helped ground the conversation in respect and caution. By focusing on verified documentation, community members encouraged one another to avoid speculation and remain mindful of the sensitive nature of the situation. At the same time, people expressed interest in future updates. They wanted to know how the court would proceed, whether additional filings would appear, and how the families would navigate the next stages of the legal process. The widespread engagement showed that the public is attentive not only to major developments, but also to the small moments that shape a broader timeline. These moments contribute to a deepening understanding of how cases unfold within both legal systems and emotional landscapes. Despite the varied viewpoints, most participants agreed on one central point: the situation is complex, layered, and still evolving. Until new records or statements emerge, the community understands that the full picture cannot yet be formed. Part 9 closes by highlighting the role of community engagement in shaping public awareness. Through shared discussions, questions, and reflections, the public becomes part of the ongoing narrative, waiting, watching, and hoping for clarity as official processes continue. The documented timeline collected from court filings and media reports offers a clear but incomplete view of the events surrounding the subpoena attempt. Each confirmed detail contributes to a structured understanding, even though many questions remain unanswered. The process server's sworn statement stands as the first anchor in that timeline. Her record of the running SUV, interior lights, and repeated attempts to reach the resident provides an objective foundation for analyzing how the morning unfolded. The next component of the timeline is the precise moment she placed the subpoena on the windshield. Documented at 10:29 a.m., this timestamp reflects the legal requirement to record service attempts with clarity and accuracy, ensuring transparency in the process. Her return to the home later that day formed another key point. The SUV's absence and the missing documents created a sharp contrast to the earlier scene. This shift added a new layer of curiosity and became one of the most widely discussed details in public forums. Viewed together, these elements highlight how individual procedural moments can influence a broader narrative. Even without interpretation, the facts themselves draw attention because they occur in the context of an already complex family situation. The timeline also reflects the intersection of two separate legal paths: a custody review and an investigative process. Although the subpoena belonged to the family court matter, its timing placed it within the same period that the federal review was ongoing. This overlap increased public interest but also required clarity. Legal analysts repeatedly emphasized that the custody filings were distinct from investigative updates, and that neither process provided conclusions about the other. Christopher's lack of public response became another entry in the timeline, not a conclusion, but a recorded fact. His silence shaped how the public interpreted the sequence of events, especially given his importance to the custody hearing. When Fox News reported that he did not respond to attempts to contact him, it further highlighted the absence of commentary from individuals central to the situation. This reinforced how much of the story remained behind closed doors. The timeline also includes the filings by Thomas Hudson, which raised concerns about communication and decision-making within the blended family. These filings contributed context to why the subpoena for Christopher was necessary at that moment. By placing the custody filings alongside the service attempt, observers began to understand how interconnected the family's circumstances had become. Each document added another layer to the evolving picture without providing definitive answers. The absence of new announcements from investigative authorities formed another timeline point. This silence reinforced the idea that the public could rely only on verified documents and not expect continuous updates on sensitive matters. Because no new statements were issued, the existing timeline became increasingly important. It offered the only stable reference for understanding what events had occurred and how they related to one another chronologically. The timeline also reflected emotional realities. Families navigating grief often interact with legal processes differently,
an emotional mess.
and these emotional factors
He couldn't
shape
even
how
speak.
events unfold. The court documents capture actions,
And his
not
grandparents
the
say
emotional
she
weight
and her
behind them.
stepbrother were close.
Despite these
They also
gaps,
planned to
the
join the
timeline
military.
remains
She
useful
had
for
purpose.
understanding the
She
procedural
wanted to do
landscape.
things.
Each documented moment, whether a filing, a visit, or a recorded attempt, helps build a structure through which the case can be followed responsibly. Importantly, the timeline does not imply conclusions. It simply outlines the sequence of events as they occurred, offering clarity while acknowledging that the meaning behind each action may remain unknown until official updates emerge. Public interest in the timeline reflects a desire for structure in a situation filled with uncertainty. People often turn to verified timestamps and documents to make sense of complex developments, especially when many details remain confidential. By focusing on documented facts, observers can engage with the story without advancing speculation. This approach respects both the families involved and the integrity of ongoing legal processes, allowing room for future developments. As hearings and reviews continue, the timeline will likely expand. New filings, updates, or statements may add clarity to the events already recorded. Until then, the timeline serves as a guide, pointing to what is known while acknowledging what is not. Part 10 concludes by emphasizing that a factual timeline can illuminate the path of a case without determining its outcome. The moments documented so far provide structure, but the full picture will emerge only as officials release further verified information in the future. As we close this episode, the unanswered moments surrounding the subpoena attempt remain a significant part of the evolving timeline. The running SUV, the quiet doorway, and the documentation filed in court continue to raise thoughtful questions, not conclusions. These events show how even small procedural moments can influence a broader story, especially when families are navigating difficult circumstances. The case is still developing, and many details remain protected within official processes. Our goal is to trace the facts that are publicly available, presenting them clearly and respectfully. As new filings, statements, or updates emerge, each one may shift the narrative or provide clarity to moments that now feel incomplete. This ongoing journey reflects the importance of patience in understanding complex situations. If you want to continue following this case as it moves through legal steps and public updates, Crime Wisp will be here to examine each verified detail. We focus on documents, timelines, and factual developments, not assumptions. Your engagement helps guide which parts of the story we explore next, and your insights add valuable perspective to our growing community. You're watching Crime Wisp, where every whisper becomes a lead and every detail matters. If this breakdown brought clarity or raised new questions for you, make sure to subscribe, tap the notification bell, and share your thoughts in the comments. Stay observant, stay thoughtful, and remember, in true case storytelling, even the quietest moments can speak the loudest as the story continues to unfold.